Vanished Market Avenue Northwest is a program about people, residences, factories and stores, liveries and warehouses, and public transportation, theaters and entertainment, hotels and restaurants, saloons, gambling, brothels, with lots of sound and even more smells, all found on Market Northwest. This is part 2, where we walk down Market Street on the east side of the street. If you haven't already seen it, check out part 1, which covers the west side of the street. We start by looking south on what was once Market Northwest. The photographer is standing on Monroe Center, Breonna Taylor Way, looking south toward Fulton Street. A parking lot is behind the photographer. On the left is the Grand Rapids Art Museum. On the right is Rosa Parks Circle. The red line on this Grand Rapids public planning map highlights where Market Northwest was, from Monroe to where it ran into West Fulton. Shoe shining became a service industry of choice for many Greeks who came to the Midwest. There were a number of shoe shine stands around the city center, but the one on Monroe and Market, owned by Greek immigrant Peter Smirles, pictured here, created controversy since owners of the brick-and-mortar properties said the stand blocked easy access to their business. There was some litigation, but eventually rules were set for this trade to live harmoniously with shopkeepers. Smirles was quite successful in Grand Rapids. When he moved to Canada, he kept stock in Grand Rapids, Jackson, Chicago, Troy, New York, and Toronto shoe shine, billiards, candy, fruit, and early motion picture theater businesses. At one time, he was called the richest Greek immigrant in Canada. A full-page article about the Greeks of Grand Rapids appeared in the Grand Rapids Press. And as you can tell from the headline, it was highly complimentary. This stood out to researchers as the press was very seldom complimentary to immigrants, especially those from countries that didn't speak English. When reading about the activities on Market, if someone who was arrested was a recent immigrant or black, often a pejorative remark or discriminatory label would be printed about that person. The businesses at the corner of Monroe and Market seldom had a Market or Waterloo address, but usually had a side entrance on that street. This circa 1860 image is from Fitch's old Grand Rapids book and shows the Faneuil Hall on the southeast corner. You can see the F-A-N-E on the Waterloo side of the building. This was a 3-story Riverstone building constructed in 1846, started at the same time as the Rathbun House, Riverstone Edition. One of the earliest newspapers operated here for a short time. In 1857, the first services of the First Christian Reformed Church were held upstairs. In 1903, you could play the ponies at Grand Rapids Turf Exchange, located above Landman's Saloon. When police raided the poker joint and race betting rooms, they found 12 blackboards with the day's races. This led to the telegraph employee and manager hightailing it out of town. This held up Landman's liquor license. The inset is one of the betting tickets. In 1909, a $15,000 3-story building by Osgood and Osgood was built to replace the condemned old Faneuil Hall that was leaning into Monroe and shaking every time an interurban car went by. Here are some great ads for businesses located at the southeast corner of Monroe and Market. Note that you could visit Painless Smith, the union dentist. From 1939 to 1965, the Peggy Jane shop occupied the southeast corner of Monroe Market, which was later filled in by Radio Shack. Note the partial view of the Hong Kong Inn facade to the left of the Radio Shack. This 1902 photograph is from the Godfrey Anderson collection at the Public Library. The area has been referred to as the Old Tenderloin District, the home of unspeakable moral corruption with its ramshackle red light district. From the left, Parrish and Carruthers Saloon was connected to a restaurant. These properties would later give way to the Mutual Home Savings Building. The building with giant advertising on the side was the Honish Building, with a billiards saloon on the ground floor. Next, we see the City Mission, which by 1908 was the Temple Theater. Next door to that was George and Lem Singh's OK Laundry, raised in 1908. John Brothers Saloon, run by George T., William, and Richard S., was at the corner of Lewis. It was a rowdy group who frequented the establishment, and they and the John brothers were often in police court. We are taking a glimpse inside of 88 Market, the Cadillac Buffet, also known as Parrish and Carruthers Saloon. The saloon is run by William H. Parrish and Milburn C. Carruthers. Their business closed at this address by 1917 when a soda beverage store went in and Parrish and Carruthers took over the Eagle Hotel across the street until Carruthers' death in 1922. This photo was on eBay. The photographer is standing in the middle of Market looking north toward Monroe. We see streetcar tracks and a Northern Coca-Cola bottling company truck. The Palace Cafe shares a building with the Mutual Home Savings and Loan, and the Cadillac Hotel is upstairs. Mutual Home demolished the structure in 1929 and built their new building in its place. The Chapin clothing store at the end of Market at Monroe was sold to Sears. You will know this spot today as the surface parking lot. This is a public museum photo. The construction photo shows site preparation for the new Kresge's Art Deco store. But notice, there's a Woolworths right across the street at the corner. But let's focus on the Mutual Home Federal Savings and Loan building to the right of it. The building is 6 years old, a very fine facade on a tired street. Prior to completion, the press wrote, "The Italian Renaissance-style facade will be an imposing design in polished granite and terracotta with arched entrance. Ornamental ironwork will enter into the entrance arrangements. The banking room will have a height of 2 full stories. There will be a spacious lobby and 6 cages to care for the business of the association. Private office, officers' rooms on the mezzanine level, restrooms, and the like. The building will be steel and reinforced concrete structure. While only 2 stories will be constructed at this time, footings and walls are planned to carry several additional stories, up to 10, which may be added as need arises." This 1974 City Archives photo shows the old Woolworths building at the left, Mutual Home on the right, with the Eagle Hotel and Kresge's parking lot in the foreground. From 1980 to 2000, Mutual Home looked out onto Monroe Mall Amphitheater. The $4.5 million project, which included a large event space, amphitheater, opened with a grand event on September 10, 1980. It was hailed as the rebirth of the Central City. It was a great place to listen to bands for date night, and it was a skateboarder's heaven. This photo was taken the summer of 2000 during the construction of Maya Lin's Ecliptic urban sculpture before the new art museum was built. The Mutual Home building is on the far right. It served a couple of years as the home for UICA. Some may remember it as the skate rental and warming house for the ice rink. 2022. We are looking at Rosa Parks Circle and Grand Rapids Art Museum, which was designed to complement the Myelin Ecliptic. Built in 2004 to 2007, Graham opened to the public in October. The buildings on Monroe from Market to Ottawa were raised, removing 40-foot steel girders weighing 80,000 pounds delayed the start of construction. Wurzburg, formerly Herpolsheimer's, was a beast of a building. Although the street vanished, the facade of the old Mutual Home building is now part of Chase Bank on Wealthy in East Grand Rapids, on the site of the old Jacobson's department store. Now we're at 84 Market. It was the Hanisch building, owned by Anthony Hanisch, who ran a harness, trunk, and traveling bag luggage business. In 1860, he came to this city and learned the harness making trade with Frederick Touche and others. The upper floors of the Hanisch building held social and business offices. This was the site of the charitable benefits, Pedro parties, dances, the Machinists Union, IOF Court Rescue Lodge, Bricklayers and Masons Union, Brotherhood of Bicycle Mechanics, political parties, and in 1892, the Board of Supervisors met here. It housed a billiards room, the Deerdorf Cigar Company, as well as Lou Sam's Restaurant, the Grand Rapids Socialist Hall, and finally, Sybil's Hats and Dodson's Grand Rapids School of Beauty and Culture. '78 to '82 Market. Prior to 1870, Sidney S. Hall built a long, low brick stable to house his omnibus building opposite the Eagle Hotel. Later, the stables were moved down the block closer to Fulton. Pictured is Sidney S. Ball, who died in 1897 after shoveling snow at his home. The stable was replaced in 1875 by Ball's Adelphia Theater, and a two-story addition was added to the property. The barn was remodeled with seats, a stage, boxes, and the usual equipment of a theater, and opened as a place of entertainment to patrons of vaudeville. The Adelphia was replaced by Smith's Varieties, soon called Smith's Opera House, the original site, until 1885, when Smith built his new opera house on the next block south. From 1885 to 1899, this property was a saloon. Around 1901, the old Smith's Opera House came down, and a new one-story city mission building is erected in 44 days, with several $500 donations and many 10-cent a brick donations, with a seating capacity of around 750. Into this, the mission was moved in February of 1901. 800 people came to the mission dedication. The mission was run by Mel Trotter, who was supported by the city fathers and mothers, but disliked by the drunks, toughs, and saloon owners, who sometimes made it difficult for people to enter the mission. Mel and his brothers were known to practice muscular Christianity. In 1906, Mel Trotter aggressively sought out another property that Smith's Opera House had built in 1885. It was bigger, and it would help eliminate one more cause of drinking and bad behavior on Market. Back to the theater. 78 to 82 Market Street. When Mel Trotter moved down the street to Lewis into the newer Smith's Opera House, the building, built in 44 days, was replaced with a new vaudeville theater, again attracting a customer base that didn't align with Mel Trotter's mission. Take a look at the Temple and Columbia Theater programs that are in the archive collection at the Public Museum. The Temple Theater was an independent vaudeville theater that opened March 1st, 1909. The 8 Berlin Dancing Madcaps entertained theatergoers. The Grand Rapids Symphony Orchestra played there multiple times. It was renamed the Columbia Theater from 1912 to 1918 and reverted back to the Temple from 1919 to 1929. In 1929, it became the Savoy. Goodrich Theaters owned the Savoy from 1929 through its closing just before Christmas, 1979. During that time, the remodeled Temple Columbia Theater building seated 700. Charlie Chan at the Opera and Sing Me a Love Song with Patricia Ellis are featured on the marquee. The origins of Goodrich Quality Theaters can be traced to when William Emmett Goodrich left his family's rubber manufacturing business in order to purchase the Savoy. Goodrich renovated it as a single-screen movie theater and reopened it in 1931 with All Quiet on the Western Front. Business at the theater prospered, largely due to Goodrich's cheap double features. For just 15 cents, patrons could watch the high-budget main feature, followed by a less glamorous B movie. By comparison, the average price for a movie ticket nationwide hovered between 23 and 25 cents during the 1930s. This photo is from the Grand Rapids Public Library Ida Stolorow collection. This shows the $30,000 remodel with Art Deco front that went up in 1949 on the Savoy. Note that John Brothers Saloon is long gone and replaced with Wurzburg's 5-story warehouse, soon to be 7 stories. I hope there's enough contrast for you to see the movie titles on the marquee. In the 1950s and 1960s, the theater often scheduled what were referred to as sepia features, films with African American actors and actresses made by both independent and major studios. In its final years, owners had taken to showing martial arts films, the 1970s blaxploitation films, and finally enclosed the balcony to create a second auditorium, resulting in 2 smaller XXX rated theaters. This photo was taken in 1979, a few months before the theater closed. The Savoy was torn down in June of 1980 for additional downtown parking. Credit goes to the Grand Rapids Public Library Father Dennis Morrow collection. Continuing south down Market, we cross Lewis Street, where, since 1885, Smith's Opera House was at the corner. This building featured double doors with an art glass transom, polished cherry woodwork, and English tile flooring. There was terracotta trim, frescoed walls, and gas fixtures. The barroom had a huge bar mirror. There was a back and front gallery, or balcony. The auditorium sat 600 and the galleries added 500 more. The 2 private boxes on each side of the auditorium and the gallery were festooned with red and gold raw silk and lace curtains. The name Opera House evokes class, but this was a vaudeville theater with musical acts and popular speakers, including Harry Houdini. Women might sit in the boxes concealed by curtains and drink. It was said that wicked old Smith's Opera House's curtain boxes hid every kind of possible sin. Gambling happened and it was open after hours. Smith died in 1897, and his wife Mary ran the Opera House until she sold it. In 1906, Smith's Opera House was purchased by Mel Trotter for $47,500 and was dedicated in 1907 as a new site for the city mission. Mel Trotter had aggressively sought out the property that was Smith's Opera House. It was bigger and would help eliminate one cause of drinking and bad behavior on Market Street. Thanks to Chris Byron and Tom Wilson for this postcard of the City Rescue Mission, referred to by mission folks as the Old Lighthouse. The cornice and tower previously on the Opera House was removed, and the building had a much more modern appearance. It is likely that this postcard is pre-1915. Notice the yellow shading on the right edge of the postcard. It is hiding Tom Odell's saloon, pool hall, and boxing ring next door, which was a cause of consternation to the folks at the Old Lighthouse. The conversion of the Smith's Opera House from a cheap burlesque show into a house of prayer captured the interest and enthusiasm of the entire city. Throngs filled the place night after night. Souls were being saved. Mr. Trotter was disturbed, however, by the presence of a saloon next door to the mission. It had flourished in connection with the burlesque shows formerly held in the Opera House. The brawls and noise going on there every night were a nuisance to the whole community. In addition to this, 14 houses of prostitution surrounded the mission. The inset photo at the bottom left, from 1917, shows Mel Trotter and the American Four, a gospel quartet who traveled from camp to camp during World War I, entertaining the troops and bringing the message of salvation. By 1921, the City Rescue Mission seated 2,100 people, and programming included 7 classes 7 days a week and on all shifts. In 1936, the interior of the city mission was heavily renovated, floor pitch changed, all new seating, the old barroom became a chapel. Nearly all traces of the old building were obliterated. The Tom O'Donnell saloon next door had been added to the real estate. This photo is a new addition to the public library collection, taken after 1940 when Mel Trotter died, and the city mission was renamed the Mel Trotter Mission. Inset is an image of one of the city mission trucks which took evangelism to the neighborhood parks, complete with pianos, xylophones, and small band instruments in the truck bed. Everlasting at it was Trotter's slogan. The Mel Trotter Mission frequently brought in musicians from across the country. One favorite group was the Cleveland Colored Male Quintet, which played at Mel Trotter Auditorium, as well as other church missions at the Armory and the Civic Auditorium. It's mostly a white audience. This view shows Market in the foreground with the Lewis cross street. In 1955, the Mel Trotter Mission Building was sold to Scaff Parking, owned by Michael Abraham Scaff, a Lebanese immigrant who got his start in fruits and vegetables, then parking, then downtown real estate. The mission moved to 322 Monroe, placing it just north of today's City Hall. When the building was raised in the summer of 1956, the men who tore the building down found old Smith Opera House playbills pasted onto the walls. They had been covered up by later renovations. Scaff Parking opened a two-story parking lot there and later sold to Ellis Parking, a relation to Scaff's two daughters. When this happened, the press had a field day with their headlines, from hellhole to haven, from parking lot, from souls to sedans. This unassuming location has great stories. Here are but a few. Maxime Riquet came to Grand Rapids in 1836. His first house was subject to high water in the spring, and his daughter recalled that her family had to be rescued by canoe from a second-story window when the river rose high overnight. Over 5 years, Ringet brought lumber by ox cart from Kalamazoo to build a larger house to serve his family. In 1850, the fire at St. Andrew's Rectory and Church necessitated moving the Catholic congregation and Pastor Father Andres Vysotsky to Ringet's home until new facilities were ready. When Ringet moved, the building was so large it became a boarding house called the Grand River House, which had a substantial stable and a saloon. By the mid-1880s, the Grand River House business was taken over by Tom O'Dell, the Michigan champion. I have to take that back. It was taken over by Tom O'Donnell, Michigan champion heavyweight, in 1885 and 1886, who operated a saloon, boarding house with a boxing ring in the back. O'Donnell's was headquarters for all things sports, tickets, gambling, and a place for visiting sports celebrities, including John L. Sullivan when he was in town. In 1915, O'Donnell sold out to Mel Trotter for $12,000. By 1918, 2,000 plus interests remained. O'Donnell, a Catholic, donated over $700 to Trotter to help settle the balance. Tom O'Donnell died less than a year later. Like most Market Street buildings, this one has a checkered history. Over the years, it housed a blacksmith, a wagon maker, a number of saloons, and hosted prize fights. It was purchased by the Christian Reformed Publishing House, which rented it to a restaurant for a year or two until a moonshine raid embarrassed the church. They moved printing for the English language Banner and the Dutch language De Watcher, the Watchman or Guardian. In 1938, they moved to Jefferson Southeast, and much later to Kalamazoo in 28. The real gem is the note on the real property appraisal card. A lot of history happened here. George Welsh used this as legal residence for voting while living outside the city limits when he was mayor of Grand Rapids. Two more pictures of 52 Market. You might remember this as Hefner's Gallery or later Bernat's Religious Supply and Jewelry Store. The building was razed in 1985. Grand Rapids Public Library, 1899, Tom Carter restoration. This photo was taken of Market at Ferry Street, facing southeast. The lumberyard would be replaced by an addition to the west side of the Leonard Building, which faced Ottawa. The Grand Rapids and Indiana Railroad tracks run right down the middle of Ferry. S.P. Bennett Fuel and Ice Company is visible on the right. There are a couple of workers having lunch on a lumber cart at the bottom on the left. Same place, 70 years later. This photo is from the City Archives 35mm slide collection. On the immediate left, you can see the Leonard Building, later renamed Helmer Building. It used to be a lumberyard. This is a view to the east-southeast from Ottawa Avenue toward a parking lot is the current location of the Van Andel Arena. The buildings in the background are on Ionia Avenue Southwest. '40 to '50 Market. The Leonard/Helmer building was a favorite of one of our researchers. In July 1901, the building plans were filed for a 7-story red Owasso brick-faced building connected to the Ottawa Street Leonard Refrigerator building. The building was well used as a warehouse, furniture showrooms, and light manufacturing. It was often the site of a business as they were just getting started or when moving into town from elsewhere. Businesses included an art glass studio, Holden Veneer, Fiber Grand, who wanted to hire strong, stout women for making fiber, National Piano Manufacturing, Automatic Music Instrument Company, who manufactured player pianos later known as AMI and even later Row AMI. Other companies included several printers, all metal manufacturing, poultry equipment, gutters, all kinds of metal cutting, Grand Rapids Loose Leaf, Grand Rapids Belting, Economy Office Supply. In 1954, it was renamed the Helmer Building when Charles Helmer, president of Michigan Rent-A-Car, bought it and remodeled the structure. Later, it was home to Chic University of Cosmetology and Fiedler Textbook Publishing. We're looking at the Helmer Building on the left, connected to the Leonard Building on the right. They're connected by an atrium. November 1987, we are looking north from Fulton. Here's the same complex with dark shell replacing the white. The photo of TGI Fridays, the 2014, is from Google Maps. TGI Fridays operated from '86 to at least 2015. At this point, the address is Monroe because Market has vanished from the city maps. This is the same building, 50 Monroe, looking south from Lewis Street, taken what the dark glass face is removed from the Leonard Helmer buildings. Today, the two buildings are separate once again. The Helmer is now the Marriott AC. The Ethel Colway mural is visible between the two buildings. We promise our final photo of the former Helmer building with its 50 Monroe front door. Ferry Street, about 1928, with the curved side of the Central Paper Bunkmulder building on the left. Railroad tracks, the Elliott Machine Company at 51 to 55 Campaw in the center, and the edge of the William Berkey building on the right. Now Ferry is Ethel Colway, named for the community activist, performer, and civil rights leader. This image was created by artist Isan Summersell for the Women's Way initiative, honoring exceptional local leaders. Ethel Cole was born in Virginia and moved to Grand Rapids at age 8. She won a civil rights case while attending South High School after she was refused service at a local ice cream parlor. She was active in the NAACP, Urban League, Family Life Council, and many other clubs. She was also a singer and actress who performed for more than 40 years in venues like Civic Theater and St. Cecilia's Music Society. This is a 1911 Lewis Smokestack Towner photo from the city archives depicting the east side of the Judson Grocery Company warehouse. This image also shows the Edison Light and Fuel Company, which provided steam power to most of that part of town. Judson was located here from 1905 to 1925 when Lee and Katie Warehouse bought them out. They were the largest wholesale grocer in Michigan. From 1945 to 1966, it was a warehouse for American Seating. The City Archives photo on the left shows a view of the market side of the building, while Independent Distributors, Inc. was housed there. You might remember it as in the early 80s as the Burco Electronics building. The photo on the right is the view looking west from Ottawa with the East Bank Water Tower in the background. 1979, the Gilmores buy the building. 1983, the Visser brothers buy the building. 1994, the Gilmores buy back the building. John, Greg, and Scott Gilmore revitalized this building, which opened in 1997 as the Bob, the big old building. It housed restaurants, bars, a brewery, a smoking lounge, and banquet space. Many more people got to know the Bob when Art Prize utilized the parking lot east of the Bob for several years. Here is Parsifal, Steam Pig, a 9th place winner. The Bob is behind Parsifal. Flickr photo credits to Rachel Kramer. This photo shows the red brick facade of the Marriott AC Hotel, an entrance to the Ethel Way, a new building called GLC Live at 20 Monroe, and the Bob at the corner. The building on either side of GLC Live are the only buildings left from the old Market Avenue Northwest. Here's City Assessor's photograph of the Bob. It sits on the corner of Monroe and West Fulton and has kept alive that end of our vanished market. Finally, here was number 4 Market, a pie-shaped building at the northeast corner of West Fulton and Market. A number of businesses have occupied this seemingly small building, and most sold liquor. Listed in chronological order, saloons run by Russell Avery, Nicholas Miller, whose name was previously Mulder, Clyde Darby, Henry DeGraff, Nick's Tavern, photo on the left, the Brass Rail Bar, Lucy Lee Lounge, photo top right, owned by Leon and Lucy Olson, the Birdcage Tavern, and Olson's Rib Shack, photo bottom right, owned by Leon and Lucy Olson, and finally the Apartment Lounge. This is now the site of the deck of the Bob. Market Avenue was a city within a city, full of working men and women, sometimes at their best, sometimes at their worst. The team photo researchers hope we've brought vanished Market Northwest back to life for you.